about lots of things. We have lots to talk about with Gregory Hoffman here on the Sports Grill. Gregory, this situation with investment money with Usain Bolt and all the thing, young lady confessing, but then the questions come, could she really have used all that money to do what she's saying? I don't think so. However, let's not go there first. Let's go first to how do you deal with situations like, dealing with athletes in investment and stuff like that, saving their money, keeping their money, and to be safe?
Well, Mr. Barnes, if you look at history has shown that a lot of hard-working athletes have lost their monies through scamming. You see Scottie Pippins, you see some of the top NFL guys work hard for theirs, end up losing it. Now, there are checks and balances that you as an athlete must put in place to secure your own. The third law to investment is, or to making money, is that you must find ways to secure your investment. And I think in a situation like this, it is truly unfortunate, because I know when Mr. Bolt sat down and thought about putting aside this money, that was the last thing on his mind. So I will encourage the athletes out there and regular folks that before you invest your money, make sure you do your regular background check, not just on the institution, but also on the people, the individuals who are responsible to invest that money. Because one of the things you find in society today, that trouble will follow that same person everywhere they go. So it is important to do your own due diligence to make sure that it's not just word of mouth, people telling you how good these individuals are, but you do your own background check to make sure that whatever they say, it is proven to be true.
Yeah, because as you said, trouble have a way of following people around, right?
Definitely. And again, it is truly unfortunate, because I am sure that Mr. Bolt and his team, this catch them by surprise. But if you look at the evidence, that if they had done a little bit more, maybe they would have been able to identify that there were some issues going on long before they started to invest their money.
All right. Gregory Hoffman is our special guest here on the Sports Grill this Thursday afternoon. We're looking at the situation with the fraud involving the legend Usain Bolt. Gregory himself, an Olympian, and certainly knows his way around the track. Gregory, we talk about athletes losing their money, and you mentioned a number of players, NFL, basketball players. Some ended up broke because, just bad investments. Now, that is a different case where people tend to put their money somewhere expecting it to grow. It didn't. But in this case, it's theft. It's fraud. That is hard to avoid when you believe that in an institution that you are investing, they don't have those kind of problems.
Yeah, and that is true. But I tell you this, Mr. Barnes, my heart goes out for Usain Bolt. And I know that, I think he did not put all his eggs in one basket. But one of the things we as athletes normally do, we're good on the track, we're good on the basketball court. But when it comes to money, sometimes it's out of our league. And this is why we hire people who have the knowledge and the experience to guide us, to protect us. And sometimes you have to get up to speed with what's going on, because if you don't, you may miss something that your team ought to have seen. Now, just as I said earlier, that you have to put in your own mechanism to make sure that you're comfortable at night, because you did your due diligence, especially if you have unlimited resources such as a Usain Bolt. He had enough monies that could have put things in place, and I guarantee that after today, that Usain Bolt will put everything in place to make sure that every asset that he owns, that it is properly secure.
Gregory, the difficulty you also have here is that with this young lady coming out and confessing, what do you make of that? Because some people are saying it's a red herring. There's got to be more than that.
Well, people are saying that, and sometimes one of the things I find with me as I got older too, that sometimes you have to wait for things to unfold. For now, we can take our word for it, but I'm sure that once the regulators do their own investigation, it is possible that they may come up with additional findings that none of us could have predicted.
Yes. Now you mentor athletes. When an athlete finds themselves, and say it's not Usain Bolt, it's an athlete with much less money, they've lost it all. How do you deal with that as someone who mentors these people?
That is a very tough thing, Mr. Barnes, and this is why it is important to do the right things first. because the last thing you want to do is now go into a reactive mode. As I said before, what you have to do, you have to work with people who are trustworthy, and you have to do your due diligence before. If you wait for the red flags to pop up, then you're going to find that a lot of the money that you invest is going astray. And I can say this from personal experience too, Mr. Barnes, because I too have been defrauded out of assets and monies and all of those things because I didn't do my due diligence. I took the word of someone else, and those individuals were not trustworthy. And as a result of that, I lost a whole lot. I lost assets, in tremendous assets that I will never get back today, but I can only learn from my own experience. And this is why when I mentor people, I use my lived experience. This is something that no one can take away from me, because I know what I experienced, I know what other athletes have experienced, and the only way we can protect some of these athletes moving forward is by doing the right things first. If you go in a reactive mode, it might be too late, and you may learn the lesson, and you may only can use that lesson to share with others later on. But at the end of the day, that lesson might not be enough to help you to recoup what you have lost.
Gregory Hawk, our special guest here inside of the Sports Grill on Hits 92 FM. I'm your host, Ed Bond. Now, Gregory, it is kind of hard where we are because of, the money lost and all of that. But people also suggest that when you get in, you sort of hinted earlier on, when you get to a certain stage in your career, you've got to start looking for the type of people that can take you to another level. It is true that you want to stay around your friends. You have known him since school days. I've known her all of my life. I want to keep them in the mix. But sometimes you have to step away and go to a higher level where the persons that are involved at that level are more capable of helping you at that stage than the friends might be.
Well, there are some truth to that, Mr. Bond, and sometimes the people who are closest to you, they can be loyal as well. It's just that they might not have that knowledge and the experience to guide you. And this is why it is important that your team should always be growing. Because look at it this way. Let's say you have $12 million US dollars. That's a big nest egg, and it requires individuals that their full-time job should be just to protect that money. I'm sure that in situations like this, Usain, it would have cost him less, which I think that he will put this new protocol in place, where the person's job is only to secure that money, to make sure that everything go in is properly secured, to make sure that everything go out is properly secure, to make sure that there enough paper trail, and you don't just take someone's word for it. As I said before, my advice for Usain Bolt would be to make sure you do your own periodic audits. Your audit should be done quarterly to make sure that whatever they say, it is backed up by evidence, because numbers never lie. And you have to make sure that you do your own random checks. You see, one of the things we do sometimes as athletes, Mr. Barnes, we leave the work to be done to somebody else. And look at it this way as well. The regulators dropped the ball because they should have been monitoring this institution, and they did not do the best of job. And at the end of the day, who end up paying the price? Now, I know we are focused more on Usain Bolt, but what about the poor little Kerry Lee and the poor little Colette who only had $1.2 million in that account? What is going to happen to them? They don't have the unlimited resources to get that guidance and support, and now they are left alone, no one to speak out on their behalf. So I am hoping that the regulators and those who are in leadership will look at what is affecting the poor, and they too can put things in place to make sure that this don't just happen to icons, but it happened to this little mom and pop store owner down the street who's trying to pave a better way for themselves.
Gregory Hawk, our special guest at this time. Gregory, as we look at what is unfolding here, it is a press conference. There are lots of things to come. There are things happening, and every day something else comes out. Now, when this young lady says she, went to borrow the money, but she also says she did not know where she's going to get to pay it back, it just looked ridiculous. I guess, as you said, the investigation will, shed more light on this, and we will know exactly what happened and how it happened. But people tend to do things and think about it afterwards or only if they're caught.
Yes, Mr. Barnes, and that is why it is always good to take a proactive approach to make sure that the people that you have representing you, that they are trustworthy. You know, one of the things I do is to go into the background of everyone that come in contact with me that I intend to do business with. It is important to know that a leopard never changes its spots. And you have to be wise enough to make sure that you do your work, or the people around you can, not to take somebody else's opinion as gospel, but you want to go to bed at night making sure that the hard work is done on your part so you can cover every base that you need to cover in order to sleep well at night.
Do you think that as yourself, a former athlete, that the other athletes around who have made some good money and they have invested, they might be panicking at this stage, they might be, but then again, maybe this bad situation is helping them to make checks right now?
Well, we hope so, Mr. Barnes, but one of the things I can tell you with athletes and money, they don't listen because they think that you will always be making money because you're always going to be young. You see, Usain Bolt did a marvelous thing. He put aside monies, not just for himself, but for his families. And that is worthy to be praised. I hope that the young men and women today who have the potential to make monies, that they will think about rule number 3 when it comes to creating wealth, that you must protect your investment. It doesn't matter how much you earn. It really doesn't matter how much you save. What is important is, do you have the proper mechanism in place to protect the income that you earn and invest?
Gregory, the other side of the coin is people will look on and say, well, you shouldn't have put all of that money into one institution. But it is true, as you said, it's not just there he has money. That is just his retirement, his nest egg. That's just there. But he certainly has money in place elsewhere. And don't care how you look at it, they thought it was secure. The fact that something came up towards the end of the year, but if you had to tell an athlete now to invest, you would still tell them to invest, or would you tell them to have second thoughts?
Investment is a great thing. So we're not going to knock investment. We're going to look at the fact that where Usain Bolt put his eggs just were in the wrong hands with the wrong people. Because if you are to grow your future income, you must invest. But you also must make sure that you protect it, because they say that your goal would be like a shining armor for crooks. And in a case like this, the due diligence must be done. So if I am to encourage individuals who want to put aside money for future reasons, then they have to make sure that they do their own homework to make sure that there are no red flags. And when we look deeper into what is going on with this company here, there were a lot of red flags prior to Usain Bolt investing in that. Maybe he overlooked that. Maybe his team thought that who he is, it would not affect him, or maybe he just did not know. Whatever the case is, we have to keep our eyes on the ball, and what we need to focus on is that the regulators who were supposed to monitor not just this company but other companies around the country, that they did not do a good job in making sure that people could not go into one's account and take money whenever they desire. The reason why you have to have regulators, because when somebody works hard for their monies, the temptation is always going to be there for somebody else to use that money or monies as if it's theirs. And the regulator should make sure that they do their proper investigation. And again, I am encouraging the athletes that when you have a certain amount of money like Usain Bolt, you have to be your own regulator. You have to do those annual or biannual audits to make sure that whatever they say you are getting, you need to get it. And finally, Mr. Barnes, you have to make sure that you get authentic documents. Someone cannot just print out something and give it to you and show the income, because when you look at what the report stated, that is what the young lady was doing. She was sending out invoices, or I should say sending out statements And these statements were not accurate. And this is her own words in the report.